Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to you, and welcome to the Change Podcast. This is the podcast where we bring you business leaders, we bring you authors, we bring you coaches, and we bring you entrepreneurs to give you advice, give you tips, give you tricks, which might make your life a little bit easier. And today we have a wonderful guest. And when I read her bio, she was someone I really wanted to bring on the program. She has a cause that is very, very close to my heart. So I am going to introduce her. I'm going to do my best to say her last name correctly, but it is Veronika Bubenickova. And I hope I did that pretty well, Veronica. But yes, I want to welcome. Okay, thank you. And I want to welcome you to the show. And one of the reasons I was so drawn to your bio is that this is something very close to my heart because my mother actually passed away from breast cancer. Can you just start talking to us about what happened, when it was, and about your journey?
Of course. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast. And hello, everyone. Sending a lot of greetings. And I'm really excited to share my journey because my journey was full of transformation. And I'm grateful that I was given the chance because, Nicole, I'm very sorry for your loss. I know how hard this can be and how unpredictable any cancer diagnosis can be. So my journey started in 2023 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was at the time when I was living my best life. I had amazing career. I was stepping up the career ladder because that was essentially what I thought would help me to have an influence and to contribute to this world somehow, but I didn't know how. But that was very far from the truth at the end. So I find myself having my life completely collapsing because that was something I didn't expect, because that's something you hear about, but somehow we feel like it doesn't happen to us, or it can't happen to us, or it happened to people, not even who we know, but maybe people that are a bit further from us. It was a shock. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't prepared. I mean, you can never prepare to hear these words. And I find myself in a situation when I had to wait 2 weeks for further examinations to actually define whether the cancer from medical point of view was curable or wasn't. So, and I think it was 2 weeks where changed the way how I saw the world, the way how I saw myself, and the way how I saw my life, because my own mortality. And I think that's everyone who's been through this journey. That's what makes our journey, despite of every journey is different. This is what makes it the same in the respect that we realize how fragile our lives are, and that suddenly we realize that the way how we lived the life before might not be the best way to live in, because I lived for my career. That was the only thing I was striving for, and I completely forgot to live my life. So that was just an outlook of in the way how I felt. But at the same time, something really interesting happened, and it happened actually on the day of the initial diagnosis. After I tried to process everything, I suddenly had a moment when I was leaving my friend's house, and I turned around, looked at him, and said, "You know what? I've got this. I'm going to get through this. I don't know how, but I will do everything it takes to do it." And I sat in a car, and by the time I got home, mind you, I didn't know anything at that point. I heard of people trying juicing and changing diets and doing emotional clearing and spiritual healing. And I was ready to do it all. So the first thing was for me to get a juicer and to really overload my body with vitamins, minerals, and to support the body's defense or mechanisms at that point to fight the cancer. And because I was always around spiritual and personal development since around 18, my age of 18. So that was one of the paths I was going to explore, because I did angelic Reiki certification, but just more for my own benefit at that time. So I contacted my angelic Reiki teacher to help me to facilitate the spiritual and emotional healing, and had profound insights in past traumas, in my emotions, in getting to know who I actually am on that deep soul level. And I would say the one part was the physical part, to really changing diet and researching, what can be linked to potential cancer, or what can be linked to hindering the lymphatic system. So eliminated all that, supporting it with the good nutrition, eliminating other toxins from my life. But the other part was on that emotional and spiritual level and mental, working with my mind and really go deep within in these emotions.
Yeah, and I know how important that mindset is. It really, anything inside is going to create our outside. But one of the things I think would be really important for people watching this is what were your symptoms? What happened that made you think you needed to go to the doctor? Because my mom waited for years, actually, till it was already stage 4. And that's what we want people to avoid, is to what do they need to look for?
So the cancer I had was quite an aggressive type of cancer. So it was developing really fast. So the way how I noticed, I didn't notice any like lump, like one lump, but I essentially came from a evening run, had a bath, and suddenly noticed that my right breast is much larger than my left breast, and that it's all lumpy. And at first, I thought maybe it's just hormonal, and it might be, it might just, because it was around the period time, it might all go away. Then I also like questioned myself, maybe was I clumsy somewhere and it just like hit my breast? So we tried to make sense of it, but I did book to see a GP, because this was on Friday. So on Monday I went to see a GP, and they fast tracked me to the one-stop clinic. Again, I didn't think much of it at that time, because even the GP said it could be hormonal, maybe you will see it like going away. And I went to one-stop clinic 2 years before then, when I noticed also some changes in my breasts, but that proved to be all benign, because I lost a lot of weight throughout lockdown when I was started running. So they said that the lumps that weren't prominent before were suddenly prominent, so I could feel them, but it was all clear. So I knew the process. So I knew that they have to always fast track it as a suspect of cancer, even when it's not. So therefore, I wasn't panicking at the first. But then throughout those 2 weeks when I was waiting for the appointment at the breast clinic, another hard lump size of a grape, suddenly popped on the top of my breast.
Okay.
And that was when I knew this doesn't sound right. This is a bit strange.
Yeah.
And it was because not all cancers are that fast growing, but when it's fast growing, the changes can be really quick. And one thing I would like to share with the audience is, because before this like significant change happened, and it was very noticeable, I could feel almost like little bubbles, like going like from the nipple up to the upper part of the breast, and that was exactly the way the cancer was spreading, as it showed later. But it was something so insignificant, like it was like you have a tickle somewhere. So I didn't like pay attention to it. Only on the reflection, I could now say, well, that was actually something already that was happening inside of the breast.
That's interesting, because sometimes we're so, we don't pay attention to our own bodies. We just kind of think, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. So what would you tell people? What would they need to look for or watch for? Because you said
Yes.
it was, at first you didn't think it was anything.
Yes, yeah. So I would like after this experience, I wouldn't underestimate anything. Like so, the things to look for, and even if you think it's insignificant, get it checked, because at least it's better to know it. You panicked for no reason than having it discovered later in the stage, because later it's discovered, then obviously it's more difficult to treat it, and it has, even if it's possible to treat it, it has more impact on the person. So if it's discovered really small, it's usually radiation, slight operation, and it doesn't have that much impact on the lady's life. So the things to look for is any discharge from a nipple, any changes to a shape of the nipple, shape of the breast, any lumps in armpit or in the breast, one breast being different to the other. I mean, we normally have like slight difference, but it's about like noticing that something's different. And therefore, what is real, and it could be also like a skin, something on a skin, like a rash or something like a red spots and things like that. But that's why it's really important to do self checks. And I know from talking to ladies, not many ladies actually do the self check, not because they wouldn't care, but we naturally don't know what's supposed to be there and what's not supposed to be there. It's almost like we wish we had an X-ray vision so that we can see what's inside, but so we don't feel like confident in recognizing whether something's off or not. But what I would say, if you do it like every 2 weeks, every month, you will then see that things are same for several months, and then suddenly something changes. You will know your breast, and you will notice the change
I love
more
that
likely.
that is a great piece of advice. I mean, that's something so simple to do once a month. And that would bring an awareness to you of, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. That I didn't feel that last month. So I think that's a very, very important part of this journey, is to know your body, to know what you have, what you feel. I wish my mother would have done that, but when they said stage 4, we can't cure it, that's a devastating thing to hear. And hers was very slow growing. So it was one of those that could have been remedied extremely easy had she paid attention, but she didn't. And one of the things in your bio that I really, really love is you said you turned inward and upward. Can you explain that, please?
Absolutely. So I think because it was down to me being around the spiritual and personal development since my age of 18. I just always felt like the body is not just the physical body, that we are our thoughts, that we are energy, and there is more to any illness than just there is something wrong with the body. And I studied like psychosomatic problems or causes of illnesses, and I was always interested into how the body actually try to send messages to us to say there is a imbalance somewhere in our like physical body, but that started essentially somewhere in our emotional or mental sphere. And that's I was always fascinated by that. So it was one of the first things I wanted to go and explore. And I'm a believer that when you change the inner world, then you can influence the outer world. And so it was like a really deep journey of self-discovery of where I actually wasn't really true to myself in life, where I was chasing something that actually didn't matter to me, because it was just, I planned my life based on what I thought I could do with the things I had, and with the environment and the situation I was in. But I always felt this like urge, need to help others. And interestingly, just before the diagnosis, I really questioned my life purpose, and I even went
Ooh.
to a because I studied Silva method, which is essentially a method about controlling our own mind. And one of their module is about life mission and life purpose. And in that session, I had things coming up like overcoming fear of judgment, stepping into like who you truly are. But then I somehow like knew that it will unwrap somehow, unfold somehow. And when I got diagnosed, it was quite early on when I realized maybe this is the answer to my question. What is my life purpose? Maybe this happened to me so that I can live through that experience and be able to not only share what I've done and what I've researched, but also to share how I overcome it, and what tools and techniques I used, and being able to support other women on the journey. And also to, as I went through the journey, I discovered there's so much we can actually do to even prevent or minimize the risk of developing breast cancer at the first place.
Yeah.
And that's a message worth spreading. So I actually, although I had up and downs, and I had moments when I obviously doubts, and I didn't know if I get through, and how it will be on the other side of the treatment, I somehow like went along with it and just mapped every step of my journey in order to then be able to put it in a book and share it with the world.
Wonderful. And I'm going to ask you, did you choose to use chemo or no?
Yeah, so because the cancer was really fast spreading, I didn't want to play with the fire. I didn't like, chemo was the last option I would normally choose, but I didn't feel like I was in a situation to explore other options. So that's when I speak to my ladies, I always say, if it's slow growing, go to the doctor and say, do I have time to explore alternative, and will you help me to monitor me and support me throughout that decision? But when it's fast spreading, it is difficult, because you actually don't know what's the right answer. And I think you always have to follow your intuition and your feel. And I actually had someone, it was a Silva method instructor, who said, I think you can tackle it with your mind, and you can learn and teach your mind to program for the chemo be really effective, but having no side effects. And that's what I was doing. That's how I was programming my mind to then visualizing that the chemo goes just in those cancer cells, not the
Ooh,
rest. And I still had the side effects, but I was able to move through them faster, and I was able to move through them without like hanging on them, just
right.
to find solutions to relieve them a little bit. But for me, it was always, when I can run again, then I'm recovered. And yeah, so I listened to my nurse's advice to say, don't run the first 4 or 5 days, because you can exhaust yourself. But then from then, they even recommend exercise. So I knew that whilst I'm running, even if it's just 1 kilometer, then I'm recovering.
Yay. And that's a great way. Sometimes you just have to take baby steps into things, and so when, you're used to running marathons, but now you're running, just a little bit, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And you talk about emotional trauma work. And I am of the belief that when we carry trauma in our body, that can lead to dis-ease with our body. What do you think about that?
Yes, I'm absolutely supportive of this statement. But because I also was really interested into like intergenerational traumas, and it is scientifically proved that we inherit traumas even on the epigenetic level. So whatever our ancestors were through, that's what essentially impacts us as well. So I'm a believer that trauma stores in our body, whether it's something we carried over or whether it's something that happened in our lives.
Yeah, and I believe that too. And they say trauma can go back so many generations that we bring it forward. And a lot of people don't believe that. I personally do. And to me, I am very cognizant of my family history. And because I want to make sure, and I do my best to stay healthy, but there's always little things that sneak in. So, and you talk about not just surviving, but surviving and thriving. So tell me what the difference is. How did you survived it, but now you're thriving? What did that
So
consist of?
yeah, so surviving is getting through the treatment and being beyond that. But thriving for me is to move through this trauma with because essentially the breast cancer, I always say, it strips every woman, every female aspect. When there is chemo, we lose hair,
Mhm.
eyebrows, eyelashes, we lose breast, and it affects the way how we feel in our physical body, how we feel emotionally, and it classes as like a real, like a proper loss of identity, because we not although like I think we everyone who's been diagnosed, we think like there will be that one line when we are free of cancer and then that's back to normal, but actually it's never back to normal. It is moving to a new normal, and that
Mm.
new normal is of course affected by the trauma, by the journey. And for me, thriving is about choosing who we want to be in that life number two beyond the cancer, and choosing the person that we couldn't be because of certain limitation before the diagnosis. Because I would say, down to like after we face our own mortality, we suddenly realize that certain fears that we had before are not relevant, that the things we feared before we don't fear at all, and we actually can be braver than we were before the diagnosis. And that's when I believe that we can choose to either stay in that survival mentality, where we focus on really bad side effects, not exploring other options. Even when we have to take some after medication, if it doesn't do good to us, it's good to explore other options. Or we can just stick with that and just complain and stay with that mode that nothing will ever be good again. Or we can choose to thrive and change our lives the way that will make our lives worth living, and almost have the cancer experience as a teacher, as a lesson. So
Mm.
if this trauma was telling me something about my life before, so for me it was, I was just working. I didn't have any other like many other, I had dreams but didn't quite think I could achieve them. So I thought I will just try for the career. And the cancer journey opened me up to, actually I want to spend more time with my family. I want to have more better quality relationships. I don't want to spend time doing things that don't interest me or that are not 100% yes. And to pursue things that will make me feel more fulfilled and happier. So I changed the career, but for anyone, for someone else, it can be just pursuing a hobby or something, a passion that that's long forgotten, and to make the most of the life that we have.
Wow, that's so important is you really can see your priorities, can't you, when something like this happens. I love that. And I know we're getting close to the end, but you actually have a book called Diary of a Soul Reborn. And I love that title. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I saw my cancer journey as a huge transformation, a journey of self-discovery and rebirth. And that's why I called the book Diary of a Soul Reborn, because I felt like I went deep into my soul to discover what makes me happy and what my life looks like beyond that experience. And diary is because I did write it as a diary. So the reader can go through, they will have insight into how my life was before the diagnosis, and some describe some topics that I touched with my spiritual teacher throughout the healings, and then things that unfolded throughout the trauma healing and emotional healing. And then it goes through the whole journey through chemotherapy. I described the things that I did, but also the way how I felt, my hopes, my desires, and my highs, my lows, everything. So the whole journey, and then the journey with the operation, and then later radiotherapy, and then just a quick summary of how my life transformed since that experience.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know we're close here to the end, but I want you to give the audience just a few nuggets to take with them about your experience. Can you do that for me?
Yes, yeah, of course.
Thank you.
So I think so with what helped me the most, and what I would say, it might sound like the most challenging thing, but was to try to always focus or refocus on the healing, not on the illness, because I had the whole team of professionals focusing on the cancer. I had my loved ones worrying about me, and I was the one only person that could go against the stream and could really focus on where I want to get to and what I want to manifest, rather than what the situation I'm at, I was at the moment. And that's very nice, or something interesting that happened throughout the journey. So I was really afraid of losing the breast. So I wanted to get free of cancer before it gets to the operation date. And I had amazing results. The cancer was shrinking really fast, and even the doctors were surprised. Everything was going well. And then when I had the last scan uh, a month before the operation, it still showed 2 millimeters of the tumor. And I remember, you know, like I felt even guilty of not being happy. I was so disappointed because I wanted to be cancer free before the operation, because I somehow thought I could avoid it, or I would opt out from the operation because I was so scared to lose the breast. But because there was still this residual of the tumor, I went for the operation, and I prepared myself to get through the operation, and to set my mind in a different way, focusing on the reconstruction and getting better, and actually realize that if I want to be helping other women who are going through this journey, it's actually an essential part of my journey to understand how it feels to have the mastectomy, have the reconstruction, how it feels not to have nipple for 2 years until that can be done. And so I'm actually grateful for it. But when I had the operation, they took the tissue out and they sent it to the laboratory, and they discovered that I was free of cancer on the day of the operation.
Oh.
So I actually manifested it, but it wasn't meant to be for me to know it before then.
Wow, what a journey you've been on. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today, because you have inspired so many people, and I know you're going to keep doing it. So I want to thank our audience for watching today. And this is why we call it the Change Podcast, Insights into Empowerment, because I think Veronica has empowered each and every one of us that has seen this. And I do have links to get a hold of her in the description. And I think she is someone so important because, you know, I know so many people that have struggled with this, including my mother. So I would highly recommend reaching out to her, talking to her, and letting her guide you. So, Veronica, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been insightful to me. And I think you're a wonderful guest, and I'm so grateful that you came on today.
Thank you for having me here.
You're very, very welcome. And like I said, reach out to this wonderful lady. Thank you. Join us again next Monday when we have another empowering guest.